What's up everyone, Spiral from the Book of Saw just released, so let's review it. Real quick, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and comment down below, tell me what you thought of the movie. And this is going to be a spoiler-free review, so if you haven't seen the movie, you're free to see it, though I always encourage you to see the movie before you watch reviews. Anyway, let's get into the video. So I actually had the chance to see this movie in a drive-in theater of all places, so that was an experience within itself, but this is the 9th movie in the Saw franchise, and it kind of takes place a few years after the events of Saw 7. It doesn't really touch on what happened in Jigsaw, as you'd expect, but it follows Chris Rock, who plays Detective Zeke, and essentially him and his team, his agents, whatever you want to call them, they're investigating Jigsaw, the new Jigsaw, the fake Jigsaw, whatever you want to call him, the copycat Jigsaw. He's kidnapping and killing cops in, the classic Saw games, and so Chris Rock is essentially investigating that, and that's essentially the plot of the movie without going into spoilers. It's fairly simple, fairly kind of formatted plot, Saw idea, and for some reason all the Saw movies always have like investigations, and this one does as well. So that's essentially the plot of the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything, but overall, as a big fan of the original Saw movies, I do like all 7 original. I hated Jigsaw, and I don't enjoy all 7, but I like parts of each one. So overall, as a franchise, I do like the Saw franchise. So as a fan, I liked this movie enough. It certainly brought some life back to the franchise where it really needed that, because it really felt like if this movie sucks, this franchise is dead. We don't ever need another movie in this franchise. But I think this movie definitely brought it back to life. The traps in this movie, which are obviously the most important kind of aspect of the Saw movies, they feel very genuine. They feel very real compared to kind of some of the other Saw traps we've seen in recent Saw movies. These feel actually like Jigsaw traps, which is a good thing, even though obviously it's not Jigsaw doing the traps, but they feel genuine to the franchise, and that's really important. They are a little like hardcore, which you'll understand if you watch the movie, but I certainly like them better than like the crappy traps we had in Jigsaw, where they were all just really lame, bland, and I didn't like it at all in Jigsaw. But I thought the traps in this movie did their job. They were definitely kind of, creepy and made you feel uncomfortable and like, scary and all that. So it definitely did its job here as the kind of the iconic part of this franchise. Like I said, the plot of this movie is essentially just a detective investigation plot, like pretty much most of the Saw movies are. But I thought this one flowed nicely and actually was pretty interesting for the most part. Chris Rock does a really good job at like kind of conveying the ideas and elements of the plot, and really as do all the cast, and it keeps evolving to a point where it fills up that entire 90 minutes very well, and I think that's extremely important in this case. I mean, the plot wasn't perfect, but it was good enough for me. It was good enough for a Saw movie, and it's certainly better than some of the other plots we've seen in recent Saw movies, looking at like Saw 7 and Jigsaw, where the plot's not interesting at all. The plot here for me works. The biggest standout for this movie was actually Chris Rock in the lead role. I thought he had a great performance as, the lead detective here, and definitely a very believable performance, I thought. For me, he was definitely the highlight of the movie. He's not obviously known for his comedy work, but I think he really stands out in this movie, and this movie really shows he can act more than just, making jokes and stuff. I think this movie really showed that off, and I really like that, and I think that's something this franchise needed to do, is bring in more known actors to make these movies stand out. This franchise tends to not do that, where aside from like the first few movies where they brought in some names, but I think that's definitely a strategy they can go for to kind of make these movies stand out, make these movies feel more individual, so you remember each one individually. And that's definitely a strategy, especially with bringing in Samuel Jackson, who also was great in this movie. Not as big a role as Chris Rock in here, but he was in here, and he had a good performance for his kind of smaller role as Chris Rock's dad in the movie. So I liked him as well, but it was nice to just have these names in there that just make the movie more notable. And I think it really helped the movie in my experience watching it as a whole. But overall, I really think this movie was a successful entry in the Saw franchise. There wasn't a whole lot to it. I don't want to spoil anything, but it definitely feels like it's setting up future projects. I'm not going to go into the specifics of that, but it definitely feels like that. There's not a whole lot to this movie. The scope's not super big. It definitely feels like a very kind of safe Saw movie, if I would say so. My biggest issue with this movie was actually that it was a little short. The whole movie felt like it could have been at least, 10, maybe 15 minutes longer. And I can't believe I'm saying that for a horror movie, because that's not usually a complaint. Usually if a horror movie's too long, I'll complain about it being too long, because it's hard to hold a, horror story for more than 90 minutes. But here I definitely felt like the plot could have used another maybe 10 minutes just to develop things a little more, develop the investigation, and maybe have a few more traps, and there's not a whole lot of like gore in this movie. There is when the traps are happening, but there's not a whole lot of them in the movie compared to some of the other Saw movies we've had. But I definitely enjoyed those aspects of the movie. But I think it could have used more development as a whole. That's not a usual complaint for horror movies, but I feel like that was the case in this one. Also, on kind of like a less major complaint, I thought the voice of Jigsaw was really dumb. It didn't sound scary or intimidating to me. It just sounded really stupid. I didn't like it at all. I thought that was really unfortunate. I can't understand why they actually decided to leave that in the movie, because it didn't work for me at all. It kind of took me out of the scenes in the kind of Saw game scenes. It kind of took me out of it, which was really unfortunate. But overall, like I said, I really had a good time with this movie. It's not perfect, but it definitely was good enough for me. It definitely was what I was looking for. It has a lot of like nice style to it, like just the directing style by obviously the guy who did Saw 2, 3, and 4, which was nice to see him return for the franchise. But it felt very stylized, and it felt very unique in the franchise. It definitely stood out. It didn't have this like color palette that Jigsaw did that kind of made Jigsaw feel a little pretentious in a way, because it just was like, oh, look at us, we can do this different color palette compared to, you know, like green font that the Saw movies have. This didn't necessarily have that, but it didn't stand out in a way like Jigsaw tried to. And I thought that definitely worked. And just the cinematography I thought in this movie was pretty good. It did its job there, and it wasn't bad at all. The acting in this movie was also good. The writing, I mean, everything in this movie was fine. I don't have any major complaints for this movie. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't like an amazing movie. Definitely not going to be one of the best of the year. But in terms of a Saw movie and a horror movie, it worked for me. I'm a big horror fan, a big Saw fan, and it definitely added to the franchise. You know, it has all the Saw elements you like in the Saw movie. It even brought the classic music back. I like what they did with the spiral in this movie, especially towards the end. You'll kind of get that as you watch the movie. I like what they did in that. I like that they brought the music back, especially once again towards the end. But that was really cool, and I really liked that. It kind of paid respect to the original Saw movies in a lot of ways, and it didn't kind of crap on them. I feel like it successfully evolves the franchise and opens a number of doors to continue this franchise down the road in a successful fashion, and not kind of just doing these cash grab movies that we kind of saw with the later Saw movies and then Jigsaw. Definitely, I feel like this opens the door to make more Saw movies and more Saw movies that actually work and are good. But once again, it wasn't a perfect movie, but it was good enough for me, so I'm going to give it a 74% and 3 out of 5 stars, right in the middle there. But the score is a lot higher than a lot of the other Saw movies, but we'll see on my ranking here in a few days how I rank them. But anyways, that will do it for my review for Spiral from the Book of Saw, whatever the title is. I recommend you see this movie if you're considering seeing it. I would recommend you see it. It was definitely worth it to me. I had to see it at a drive-in theater, like I mentioned, so it was worth it. Not necessarily the greatest movie to see at a drive-in theater, but if you can see it at a theater, I would recommend it, because it is. I think it's worth your money. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and comment down below. Tell me what you thought of Spiral. Did you like it? Did you not? How does it compare to the other Saw movies in your opinion? Anyways, thanks for watching, and have a great day.